Production, but yeah, he's working. So, reason number one. Well, first let me introduce Ocala Chronicles, which is a sort of quiet little thing that I'm doing. It's not really a money-making entity at this point. It may be at some point, but it's just a bit of media for the arts for all of them. Not one art place promoting itself, just all of the arts and what's going on. And at some point it has a bigger vision, but right now it's just growing itself like that, naturally and organically. So I wanted to start this salon, and a lot of them can be held here, but they can be held anywhere. And it's the salon. First reason is straight up group networking. We can all support each other. NOMA has a great group of artists that kind of shows that, and can be another, or alongside that, there's no competition because there's no money trying to be made or no anything like that. So it's just camaraderie. Yesterday, in anticipation of this, I started a group page for the salon in case you guys want to get in there and do it. It's not going to be like moderated. You guys can all just own it. It's just, instead of like a chat, it's just a group page for creatives and artists. If you want it, it's there. If you don't, you don't. And the other thing I started yesterday in anticipation of this is a art marketplace group page, kind of like the yard sale kind. So you can post art for sale, and hopefully local people can shop for art there. And again, no commission, no money, it's just a venue, it's just a thing. If you're a gallery, if you're NOMA or MCA, you can post the stuff there too for it to be sold at your venue. I don't care. It's just about kind of coordinating the arts and hoping people will shop and spend money on it. So those two things exist, and I'll tell you what those links are later if you want them and whatever. And so this is the first meeting, and I chose the topic of pricing your art because it's a hot topic. And what I have is a handout that I didn't print a bajillion of because I really didn't know who all was coming, but I have it that I can email everyone. And I didn't make it. It's Art Biz Success, this woman named Allison Stansfield, who 10 years ago, I was in a group called Out of Hand Artists locally. Sharon Crute had started it, Margaret Watts was in it, Nancy Moskowitz, Lynn Hirschberg, anyways, whatever, a whole bunch of women. And we did a whole bunch of Allison Stansfield stuff because she's got this great thing about art business and promoting yourself as an artist. So she has a lot of good material. And it's just free. I mean, you can pay, I guess, for some of her workshops, but she just has a lot of great material for artists. So I'll also give you guys that link in this handout if you want it later. Just tell me or give me your emails or whatever. So I thought I would go over some basics in her how to price your art thing, and that we could all just discuss. Beyond her really good info, I think there's a thing in our community why I think it's important that we discuss this together, and I didn't just say, hey everyone, I have some info you could read and email it to you, is because to some extent we're competitors. Photography prices all around town. I mean, to a large extent we're not, because we have different artwork, but yet we are all fighting for the same dollars. And so I just think it's nicer to be a community about it amongst ourselves and support each other than, and so in the spirit of collaboration and all of that, I thought we could all just talk about it together. I don't know. And in future salons, there can be other topics like what inspires us the most, and maybe it could be things we need to learn about, like copyright law, or just any topics whatsoever. It could be at anybody's place. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. Anyone can host it. We can all be YOB. If we want to do these every month or two, it's just a casual meeting of creative minds. Maybe we'll end up doing some work together. Maybe we won't. I don't know. So that's my thought. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah. My pleasure. And again, it's not a favor anyone's doing for me. It's not a money-making thing. It's just something that I, want to do. So, anybody want to say anything first, or should I just dive right into the aspects, the factors of? She's got 9 factors and then 3 methods, and then we can just chat after I kind of say what they are, if you want. So anyone has anything to say? Because we're really quiet in the classroom. Oh, this is a Leslie quote. The truth is, as you hear repeatedly, art is worth what someone is willing to pay for it. There is the market value, but how are you supposed to know what someone's willing to pay for it before you put a price on it? We'll get to that. There is no magic formula for pricing your artwork, but there's information that you can put into it so you do it in an educated manner. So I'm going to say the title of the 9 factors, and then I'll go back and it's not really long. I'll go back and say a little bit about each one, and then we can talk about. And then I'll say the titles of the 3 methods. We'll talk about that. So 9 factors, according to Allison Stansfield and Leslie. Did you guys all know Leslie? Does everybody know Leslie Hammond? Okay, she's our true expert. But Allison Stansfield in the Business of Art says that there's 9 factors. 1 is the production cycle, meaning like how long it takes you to create a piece. 2 is the market demand. 3 is the size of your artwork. 4 is the medium and support for it. 5 is the production work, including digital prints. 6 is whether it's consigned work. 7 is commissioned art. 8 is geographical location. We're in Ocala. And 9 is your career. Okay, so those are the factors that would go into the pricing of your art. And the 3 methods that she talks about. 1 is actual cost pricing, which there's an actual formula in here, which you can all get. It's like overhead cost per year divided by the number of works for that year equals your overhead cost. And you add your labor, and you add the profit margin, and you add the commission, and you add framing, and you get your sales price. So that's a formula that you can all take away straight off. That's one method. A second method is market pricing. Like what will the market bear? This is trendy, this is better, this is whatever. And the third one is square inch pricing. And there's formulas for that too. So these are some really good methods. Of course there's, I suppose, other ways, but these are to sound basically. Okay. So, all right, I'll say a little bit about what she says about those things, if you guys want. The production cycle. So, the production cycle is the length of time it takes you to complete your work. If you work faster and are very prolific, your prices might be lower than an artist whose work takes months to complete. If your work is very intricate, or for whatever reason takes weeks or months to finish, then you're at a competitive disadvantage. I urge you to try to find some way to reduce the production time you spend on your work. Artists who have longer production cycles usually expect to be paid for all that time, but that's not always how it works. The market will not bear that. The market will not pay you an hourly wage for 6 months, especially when you're just starting out. Find a way to shorten the production time of your art. Maybe I should hand this around. We can all read this section. Yeah. Okay, so we're doing
market demand. I don't even need this. You know what the market demand is for artwork? A big goose egg. Because sad but true, Ocala needs a culture change. A lot of people here view artwork as furniture. It's just something that looks good right next to your couch. So I think collectively we can all work on that. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
All right, market demand. It says, I read out loud in 15 years. It's like I gotta remember what we're
Reading is another art form.
Declaration perspective. Hey, no talking in class. Where's the talking?
This is a talking stick. That paper is the
Teacher's head can maintain.
Yes, you would be marked down.
Yeah, it goes up.
Oh, this is only a paragraph? Wait.
You can do 2 if you feel like it goes too fast.
It says, remember that lesson about supply and demand from your economics 101 class? It applies to art as well. If you're selling out of inventory, if you can't keep up with the demand, it's time to raise your prices.
Something like that.
Yeah, that was it.
No, it goes all the words up there, right?
This?
Wait.
No, that's part
Size
of
marker? Okay, hold on.
Wait.
It started there.
Yeah.
Okay, you read that. Oh, that's it. Okay, go to 3.
Yeah. Hey, option number 3 is also.
That was market demand, man. That's all to say about that.
If your shit's selling, raise your price.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Sum it up in size of your artwork. If you paint like Jordan, it's gonna cost a bunch. I gotta remember we're recording. Kids are watching this. There we go.
Aaron is watching, our viewer, we have viewer.
I'll calm down. Larger artworks are usually more expensive than smaller works, of course. This may be self-evident, but you have to consider this when you think of the costs that go into the work you're making. Those larger works obviously use more materials, so your investment is greater to recoup.
And more time. Right. Remember, it's like geography.
You're the one that's like a
You
page.
gave me the one
Hard
that's,
to figure it out.
oh, it's fine, I'll read it. Number 4, medium and support. A fourth pricing factor is the medium and support you choose. Getting straight to the point. Works made from higher priced materials have higher price tags on them. Duh, right? It says duh, right? If only it were that simple. Let's look at two-dimensional works. Works on canvas or panel almost always command more than works on paper. There is a higher perceived value for works on canvas, but then there is that whole framing thing. You have to frame works on paper, which adds a lot to the price. If you have works on canvas and works on paper and are trying to price both of them per square inch, which I'll get to in a minute, maybe not me, you'll need a lower price per square inch on the works on paper because you want the canvas's price to be higher. The market expects this. How do you make sure works on canvas are priced higher even though framing is such a big expense? This is a struggle for a lot of my clients, and I have actually come to the point at times when I've said, focus on the canvas. Works on paper are often too hard to price and recoup your expenses, especially when you're also making works on canvas.
So just work on a canvas instead of paper. Here you go.
Can we stop?
Ralph, you have to print your photos.
Yeah, I'm like, time for comments.
Depending on what you frame yourself, framing can help and it can also hurt you. A lot of people refuse to buy things because the frame doesn't match the decor, but they love the painting.
Yeah.
A lot of serious artwork gets bought and then people tell you to destroy it, rip it off the support, roll it, put it in a tube, and send it to whatever country you're going on to stay at. So there's not, framing can work in your advantage with some stuff that is on paper or maybe made of materials that are going to fall apart. You need to frame it because you need to have an archival quality, so you're actually putting out things of value if you want to get money from people.
And marketing-wise, the presentation in a frame is much better,
Right.
Yeah.
but all of their points are
But
valid too.
it
so-
depends, you know,
Yeah.
like a lot of the stuff I was putting gold, like what I consider to be my favorite way of framing a lot of my stuff, will be like these gold ornate kind of museum style frames, but that's clashes with most people's collection of artwork because not a lot of them
Or
do
house.
that. So a lot of people have kind of leaned on me in that way, we'll frame this in black or frame that in this. So sometimes temporary framing is something to consider, or no framing whatsoever, and like a certain kind of presentation quality. But I guess it depends on where your market is, because it's all real super relative. It's not just one way, or like a this demand, because your demand's not my demand, it's not his demand. You know what I mean? It's just a totally different kind of thing.
Have you ever sold the artwork where it's like, this is $500, but $100
frame.
extra plus if you
Yeah.
want the frame?
Yeah, for sure.
I've seen that at
And
galleries
like give that
as a
option.
standard.
But it's
Make it
more than 100 normally, to be honest, like more like a double kind of thing. So you can
Right.
get it as is for this, or you can get it completely wrapped up for that, you
Give
know.
them options.
But it depends, it's strange. It's kind of
Leslie,
like what are you trying to get at?
what is your take on that?
Why don't we go ahead through the whole
For
cycle?
frames, and then go back to
Well,
some
no,
stuff.
just through the whole
Okay.
nine
The nine
days, and
days.
then we'll just have
Some context.
because we could get very.
Yeah. As a non-artist person, because I don't have any artistic talent.
Apparently you're a
that's my
reader.
I'm best friends with this one
She's here for
because
moral
I have a
support.
passion for art. I just don't have art
hang out long
That
enough.
doesn't
they'll
mean
have-
that we don't get that.
But I can look from the outside perspective as a buyer in a way of what Teddy said earlier about people buy to match their furniture. And so that goes into the concept with the frames. People might buy your artwork if the frame matches
Right.
the furniture in their house. So that may
That's the truth.
either be beneficial or not beneficial for selling your artwork.
Yeah, you can get clever like Jordan and make frames that are also intriguing and have striping. That's another aspect. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It could be another way to get creative.
Just to make it.
And then have a spread. Little something for everybody.
Framing that matches your artwork.
Yeah.
Actually,
Like,
it's
it's
more
more
feminine.
feminine,
That's cool.
you get like a feminine frame, and it's masculine.
It's a very finished photo.
frame.
I've taken a frame, put the art in it, and painted it in the frame, and painted the frame like it's all the painting, but it's the frame, which is kind of cool. So it's like a Google look there.
Good. All right. Now, on to three-dimensional works. Bronze sculptures have higher prices than carved wood because the production in bronze are more expensive than the wood. Who here does three-dimensional? Or has done three-dimensional?
Can you make this chair over here?
Oh, the chair. Okay. That's
That's a scary trick.
Yeah, say if it was here.
Daniel Grant, who has written a number of art business books, has said that bronze sculptures are generally priced 3 times the foundry price. So I'm just going to go with what he says because I trust him. I don't know how bronze artists can afford to have anything cast without financial backer or pre-sales because it's so expensive. True. When pricing your art, look at the materials that you're using, the cost and the perceived value of the materials. Number 5 goes to you.
Ralph, you will.
Can I add something?
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you read that.
I'll let you read.
I knew
But
it.
what about like, your experience? And the
That's
amount of
another
time?
factor, that's not in the materials.
So this is like purely.
That's another factor, it says
This is like
career.
purely the medium and like when you're using materials.
Yeah, this is like, for you, Ralph, it would be like, well, obviously your camera costs something, you're like, blah, 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 but then also how much it would cost you to print it out.
Yeah, like we were talking.
And, you know, so it's just the actual material cost.
That's been
It's another factor for sure,
Okay.
but it's a number 9.
Number
Yeah,
5, production work, including digital prints. Many artists have production work that is different from their one-of-a-kind pieces. Potters have molds they use repeatedly to make the same form. Jewelers have elements that they hire studio systems to replicate. Painters have digital print reproductions, now known as these. I don't know how to say that.
She played.
Yeah.
You just bought one tonight.
No, I'm like, I know I just bought one, but these are different than art that was created in the form of multiples. For example, bronze sculpture and fine art prints are conceived as multiples. They are made in limited editions and then the cast are created, are destroyed, yet each is considered an original. Production work is always less expensive than one-of-a-kind pieces. Let's talk more about whatever word he said. Cheap clay. Since these are such a popular option for artists. Barney Davies' book, How to Price Digital Fine Art Prints, contains sound advice from a number of people in the digital print business. I want to share with you some interesting insights that I discovered in that book. A reminder that this discussion does not pertain to fine art prints like etchings, engravings, woodcuts, or monotypes, but only to digital reproductions. One person in Barney's book suggested that digital fine art prints should be priced at a percentage of the original piece. Let's say the original is on the market for $1,000. Then maybe your prints are 10% or 20% of the original price. So you would sell your prints, say, in the $100 to $200 range. Another way to price your digital prints might be the production cost. If the print company charges you $25 for this print, you might multiply that by 4 or 5 and sell it for $100 or $125. Artist Mary Erickson, who has considerable experience in this area, says, our publishing industry standard has always been 10 times printing cost. That way, you can sell to a gallery or still pay your mortgage, utilities, clothes, foods, and retirement.
So you're still getting 5 times. She's saying 10 times, but you have to put gallery commission on there.
Yeah.
Of course, your print prices would be grounded in all of the other research you have done so that you're not pulling a number out of the hat. The other thing to consider in price,
Nothing, go ahead.
The other thing to consider in pricing digital multiples is open versus limited editions. Most artists who make digital prints do open editions, which is expected. Some in the industry refer to them as poster prints. If you decide to do an edition, smaller editions are priced higher than larger editions. By smaller, I mean fewer in number, 10 or 20 copies rather than 500. And remember, they're only priced higher if there's a higher market value for them. If you have people who are willing to pay the higher prices. Imagine if you're doing really well selling your digital prints for $1,000 and then decide to release a new edition limited to 5 prints. You could, perhaps, price the limited edition to $2,000. This price jump is impossible when you're selling your prints for $125. So limited editions for lower price reproductions don't make sense. Finally, when producing multiples, all works in addition are priced the same in each size as its own edition.
Thank you. And you sell prints, so this flow is completely applicable for your photography, especially for photography.
Yeah.
All photography is limited. I mean, unless you have one and you don't ever sell it again.
Right? Think about that.
What?
Because you have a photography major who's making their own prints, so, or at least.
I don't like, the print, I was surprised when they said, what was the percentage thing like that? I definitely do not gauge on that as far as like, because I have paintings that I sell for, $5,000 or $6,000, and I don't charge 10% of that. I mean, I'll still sell it for $20 print of that piece. That's also at least a print that is unlimited run, so.
Well, so, yeah.
So my fancier cheap prints.
Yeah,
still-
so it's a poster print.
Yes.
What about
Sometimes I do, I do
watercolor?
read the price print. But there are the cheap prints, and even still, those are still $150 to $200. So I never really, like, it doesn't, I use the same price regardless of the price of the paint. I never actually thought about, like, well, this paint is worth more, maybe this print should be worth more too. They usually, the number, yeah, the
It's
number.
nice to have a basis.
Yeah, so I never thought about, like, well, this is a more expensive painting, I shouldn't do that, but, so.
Well, maybe you treat it like, you kind of treat it like a museum. If you go to the deli, you go buy the size print. The size print, of whatever painting, is gonna be the same $35. It's not gonna, it's gonna be judged on the size, and then you can have consistency, and I think a lot of customers, and people in general, like collectors and just human beings, enjoy consistency. Because that's one thing about your stuff, I know if I show up to your stuff, and I have a particular amount of cash on me, I can leave with a couple of things, always, and I know what to expect for that, and there's something to be said for that, that's why, I know, you and me have been having a lot of those talks, because I'm trying to learn about that kind of thing from you, about the spread of prints, not just having one option, but having really fancy watercolor paper prints that are only a limited run, and making the artist proofs available sometimes, or something that makes it a little more interesting than just shooting prints off the computer, which is still cool, you know. But I like that idea, making it available for everybody. We famously did the $5 prints. Teddy's genius idea, that was a smash. And it's great because
I was like a marketing.
I have some.
I have some too. I know that sort of like, why are you $5?
Yes, mine.
So wait, why was that? Say that again.
why? Because it's.
Because it was fun.
It was fun. It's something for the people, for the show, so that
I was like,
when people come, they can.
As you laid
actually
it down,
take something
I was
home.
like picking them up.
It's just a
Like,
novelty. It's not, we weren't doing it to make money. It could have just as well been free, but you know, we're all working here, so it's
Yeah, kind
part of it. And $5 is a cool way for people to
Something
be like,
for
hey,
everybody.
show them up. But there's no obligation or attachment to it. It makes it fun. And then we all did pretty well with that show, so we're able to do that and then still sell a few pieces of art. We still have an entire show. So I think for me personally, it's about pricing things in a way that you can have a whole show and you don't necessarily sell out, but you can sell a few things and do okay. And if you got a couple of guys that are cross-pollinating and we all sell a few things, and we do real well. And if everybody has prints and we're all in on that, then it's like the people get something out of it too. It just is this kind of mutually beneficial thing. But we all make a lot of money and we still have an entire show. That if I think if we put more legwork in, we probably could sell more of if we were doing multiple openings or multiple viewings or whatever it is that folks do with that kind of thing to maximize it.
If people are buying artists, they're not necessarily, oh, I have to have, it's like, this guy is so cool, I need something that was his. So having an opportunity to buy something and in your local community, having people come together where you're getting a $5 piece, you're like, this is the best thing. And then of course they're gonna come out, they're still gonna pay $30, $50, $75, $275 for your other prints as well because they support you. But that has a nice little, it is nice, and it also brings people from other places. Listen, if you show up at this event, you could also get X, Y, Z, and it brings people.
Not to interrupt, but that would be a whole other salon, is like your image and marketing and like, you know, your draw as an artist and the things you can do to promote and stuff like that's kind of where a lot of that falls.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Yeah, the moral of the story is don't sell your stuff for $5.
That's a very good marketing tool, and it's a very good way to get people to get a piece of you and you.
That's the thing with art is how invested are you? Some guys have been so far invested for so long that you can't calculate what I put into it. It would never be a thing, so you have to make it make sense for you, and make it make sense for you and your bills and your household and all that kind of thing. It's a kind of case-by-case basis, and then there's a lot of stuff that maybe could be guidelines that will help guys on the come up. But a lot of us, I think it's just, it's valuable because it's valuable to me. So what do I need out of it to get my, I don't know, do you want to be hood rich or you want to be hippie rich? Like, there's different ways to rock, and everybody has different ambitions, and that's where it really is about clarifying what it is you want to be. How do you want to be perceived? You know what I mean? Like, Justin has a particular kind of prestige to his art and the way he presents everything, to the amount of quality and the kind of craftsmanship. You're going to get that every time from him, just like you would from Shabbat or like from Mel. You're going to get a consistent quality, so it's a high end, but that's what you want in that realm, you know? So it's kind of, it shifts a lot. I like to exist everywhere, and I think that's kind of a good thing, but it also could be a problem, because I think with representation and more dealing with galleries more often, there needs to be, I have to have a better, I'm trying to work towards more of a consistency to how you would value a new piece. As opposed to it being, if you caught me on Saturday, you might have got it for $80.
Right, that's not good. That's not good if you're a full-time artist and that's your whole thing. Then that's something you don't want to do. All right, where we at, Bronson?
Number 6.
Number 6, consign work. When you show your work with a commercial gallery, you are consigning the work for sale. It's a standard that galleries take 40 to 50% commission on the sales of your work. If gallery representation is your goal, you must build this 50% commission into your pricing from the very start in order to avoid increasing prices dramatically in the future or losing a lot of money. If you sell the work, you have earned the commission for yourself. Likewise, if a gallery or other agent sells a piece, the 50% they earn won't be as painful for you because you priced the work correctly. You should never sell your work for one price out of your studio, then add a commission if it is sold elsewhere. Gallerists will look unfavorably upon this practice and will drop you like a hot potato if they find out. You have one price and only one price for that artwork. If you sell that piece for $1,000 from your studio, you'd better be ready to agree to a $1,000 price tag on it in the gallery. I absolutely cannot stress this enough. You have one price for that piece of work, regardless of who sells it and where it's sold.
It's surprising over time, but like, so say now I raise it for another gallery, but then after it doesn't sell the gallery, I can keep it at that price and I keep going up. Is that considered like weird? Like I will not sell it out of my gallery for less than after it doesn't. Because that's what
If you make a deal with us, it has to be a secret. That's all.
But I'm not saying I'm going to make it less. What I'm saying is like, so for example, like recently, so I got the show, and I've decided I'm putting pieces into it, and there's some older works going to I'm going to raise the prices. But I'm not going to drop them back to what they were. Now they're actually, those are the prices. Like all this stuff just went up with everything else that's new. Like, then it's not shady, right? So like, because I'm not gonna, you come to me later.
Sure,
I'm going.
your market value is up, you've increased things, that, I think that's, I'm not sure on the specifics there, but.
I will keep all Justin Aldeck's secrets
Just
about
like-
what your price is.
Hey,
I will not say where that
I'm
comes.
just wondering, because I was like, I'm just thinking about it as like a recent
Yeah.
topic that I was like, well, I mean, like, I never go back down. Like, my prices, I never go down. That's the thing. Like, you're gonna get pieces that either gonna go up or they're gonna stay where they're at. If I do raise it per show, then it's where it goes from there. It's raised at that show and it goes only higher.
Yeah, I think this point is more like not to sell cheaper at your studio than you would at a gallery.
But like,
That's
like,
what
kind of side, I'm gonna go lower.
This is why representation exists.
Family member, or
So
just
you
like
can deal with that.
side.
I don't have anything to do with that, to be honest. I'd rather give Diane all my paintings and let them sell, and she can deal with that. I don't think that this whole new age shit of like, the artist being the direct to, it's cool, and it's also not. It's cool when you're in the market.
Artists are bad at it, that's why we.
Notoriously bad at it. And it's cool in the market when you can get personal with people, and you're literally handing out there on the pavement, but in the galleries, it's not cool to represent yourself. You normally get taken advantage of. If not, you kind of volunteer yourself to be taken advantage of. Like putting low prices on something we'll do last minute, we'll say this, we're normally settling on some level for whatever venue it is. And a consistent representation is one thing we have nothing out here like that. That no one is going like, hey, how about we kind of keep it some kind of general idea.
And that's kind of why we're having this conversation, but it's up to the individuals right now. Other than, I mean, yeah, that's what it is right now. We have MCA, but that's not.
That's what we do here at the Max. All the guys that took part of the show, they all make money.
I think nobody's
That was
aiming
the
to
whole
be
idea,
a
is
real
get-
gallery.
Get guys put some money in their pocket and show them that it's possible. We just gotta help each other out, and it's amazing the shit that can happen. And I think we can all make more than we expect also, if we're willing to let
The drum
it all
up, we have to
breathe,
drum up
let it all
the,
spread around and cross-pollinate, and it's so positive.
the height, we have to get the height.
Number
I think the height is.
Bronson City is negative two.
Well, what? Number 7, we're still on the 6 or we're on the 7? Bronson likes to read. It's an orange board.
You're great at it. You're natural.
Number 7, commissioned art. A commissioned artwork is a work of art that you agree to execute according to the wishes of the buyer. Commissions are common for those who paint people, house, or pet portraits, and for artists who make work for buildings, public space. Commissions are bread and butter for many artists, while other artists despise commissions and are better off avoiding them. Commissions can originate from an individual, a company, a gallery, an art consultant, or a municipality or other government agency. Commissioned artwork should command higher prices, as much as 50% more than similar art you make for yourself. After all, you have to make sure it pleases someone else. And there is what I call the PETA factor that comes with commissions. This is the pain in the ass factor, dealing with other people and the wins. You should get paid extra for that. Note, the word commission can also refer to an agent's fee, usually a percentage for helping you sell your work.
Being a cook-to-order chef, I used to do tattoos for a long time. That's what drove me away from it mostly, is that you're a cook-to-order guy. Here, this is what I want. Yeah, I'm traditionally a French chef.
You're scared of those tattoos.
You've never seen me in my face. That's what you are. You're hey guys, this is really nice.
Alright, Jessica, number 8.
Number 8, geographical location. We are not the hub of.
Yeah, this is back.
No, we
Just
are.
accept that too.
This is
We need to remember that per capita, Ocala has more art available than Chicago. Per capita.
What? Where did you get that information?
public art.
That's
Per
a cool
capita, Ocala has more public art than Chicago.
Wow.
Like all the stuff that
Keep that in mind. It is, but I think we need to take that and grow on that. I feel like we need to take that and own that and be, like, I would love to see us connect with the hotel downtown, have events here, art events, and you can go kayak, or you could do an art event, or you could do whatever.
Say kayak.
kayak, we should have a new.
Which has nothing to do with art, but here's,
Did say kayak.
but here's the thing, whose husband doesn't love the art, but the wife does. The husband goes in kayaks or bikes, and the wife goes and does the art. Don't be in charge.
All right.
But here's the
Location.
Location.
We got kayaking, we got our water.
We have biking too. Artists who sell in smaller or more economically depressed communities have often found it difficult to ask for prices similar to artists in larger cities. I argue that if you are trying to sell beyond your local community and online, you no longer have only the small town audience. You have a larger market, a world market. You don't have different price points for different geographical locations. Remember, one price only. So maybe there are just 8 pricing factors. So they're taking geographical.
Interesting.
Say that.
Because of the internet.
Prices and everything else, no matter if you're in, Punxsutawney.
But if we're really doing, and that could be another one too, how to promote ourselves online. That's a whole
If you have a
other.
website, you have a pricing website, that's.
Yeah, but the website's not, I'm just something getting
But
at.
it's just
Would
sitting
you-
there if you're not going to it.
If I take the same painting
But
that's
still, it's
here
a
for
primary
3
evidence, and someone sees they bought
Put
it,
it in
gallery, or
price.
even online, and there's your business
I
card
can
attached
triple
to
the
it,
price.
and they see that.
What would you
that's
consider?
true.
Every single
Yes.
thing. It's just a different thing. Everything.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a, that's where all our, I came here.
No matter what show.
It's a different thing.
Korea, the last pricing factor might be the most important of all, so pay attention. Your career is at stake, people. This is very simple. The longer you've been in business and the more art you've sold, the higher prices can be. You're in demand now, mother.
That was your question, Ralph.
Stop. That's what I said. Thank you, live people out there. Artists who have gallery representation usually have higher price work because of the efforts the galleries make on their behalf and the prestigious connections that the galleries have. So you have some, if I get big commissions, everyone spread the love. The more solo exhibitions and museum shows that you've had, the higher prices can be. This is why your exhibition record is important and why gallery representation can increase your prices. Even with all that fancy stuff on your resume, your prices can never exceed market value, which is, again, what someone is willing to pay for it. Full circle, people.
So basically, we have no idea. Thank you very much, Nick.
And that's the real thing. Sometimes it's really
No, it's
necessary.
it's time to get the conversation going.
It is very good. It's
It does-
very,
It's got me.
yeah.
Mhm.
So now we're on to the 3 methods, right? Or whatever the
Oh,
that sheet
yeah,
above that.
how you price it, yeah, right.
Is it a method or a their topic?
Actual cost pricing.
Actual cost pricing.
Okay.
So do you want to discuss the
It's
Yeah.
facts.
The fact
Yes, it's fact. Sure. So the 3 methods are what I'm just gonna say again because we have them in our head, but it was either by square inch or by like your overhead plus commission or by actual cost price. Anyway, so those are the ways you might do it. The 9 factors are the factors that go into like that intrinsic thing. So yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Topic.
Let's
Discuss.
discuss now. Let's
By the way, there are 2 lefts in the room, so this is so confusing.
At least there's not 2 Jessies, there's a Jessica and a Jessie, but when James is here, just left. It's very hard for me. I'm answering every time, and people talk to him more than me, but I answer them all. Like, I don't know what that's about.
I'm good. What is the more of comment?
I know, sorry.
What?
Make their, from that intense.
I mean, I might grab them all the buttons.
In a community or environment like ours, how hard is it for just the conglomerate of artists that you work with to set price or expectation from potential buyers? How hard is it for you guys to establish what the bottom lines would be, whether it be for a high-end piece, like you were talking before, or just even something you take out? How hard is it for the artists not to set the expectations of buyers as a group mentality?
I don't know, I'm the wrong person to ask here.
I'm our range is wide. Are you talking about what last art show, like Sonoma, like?
This one. Native aliens. Yes, native aliens.
Yeah.
He sold every single piece he came out here with.
So, and I do want to just mention your,
But what do you want?
I don't know what you call it, the black and white golf
Such a
show.
good thing going on.
Yeah, the black and white show you have.
Cool.
Back in October.
It was so cheap, I felt like saying too cheap, Hetty, but guess what? I got to buy one. And sold it everyone, and I sold it all out, and it was so fun. And it wasn't $5, it was a couple hundred, or 80, or two, I mean, it wasn't $5, so thank God. And so I remember that show will always stand out to me as like, gee, Teddy, it's too low. But gee, Teddy, thank God it's so low. We're all buying it up, we're happy to get
So
it.
that goes to number 9. Like he said, career. Art, sad and true, is not my full-time job. For me, it's more of a hobby. So if I make $1 million off of it, cool. If I don't, so what? My prices are chaotic and random and based off of nothing, to be honest. And I kind of enjoy it like that. I like to price my stuff more towards the lower end. I mean, sure, I got the things that cost real money, but for the most part, I would prefer to not carry all that back home for one. And I feel like if someone likes my work, I will take a bet. If someone says, yeah, that's a $500 piece, nah, I mean, $250.
No, when I'm buying art, if it's something that's priced, no, but if it's priced, I've bought a few local artists. Look at the snacks, I don't have a lot of money. But if I've bought I forget, Lisa White's, anyway, I actually overpay. I go this is $80, what are you talking about? Here's $150. If I haven't, it's not a lot, but I can't stand low price art when I know it's worth more. And at the same time, that's the only way I'm gonna buy it, because I don't have a lot of money.
Jesse, the question is, why do you think it's worth more money?
Because I think if I'm drawn to that unique thing, it's only one. There's only one. This isn't a Hobby Lobby mass-produced piece of art, and it's sold for the same price as a Hobby Lobby mass-produced art if I can afford it. You know what I'm saying? It's not. I can't afford it. So if I have anything extra, I'm giving it.
But how,
I've done it for
$200, right? Like even like minimum wage now, we're all making at least $150, $200 a day, right? Or not really.
It's very, so I don't have the money to be a good shopper, but if I have more, I give it. I just do. I think it's all worth more. I don't know.
it's
Sure, maybe
relative.
that person.
It's
Because to me, the intrinsic value of making someone happy with something visually, pulling on the emotions, the whole thing that a piece of art. Hi, Aaron. I don't know what price to ever put on that. You know what I mean? So anything I can pay, and I can only afford the cheap stuff, but that's what I do. I generally have overpaid if I
I
need
prefer the
it.
word inexpensive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Fair.
Cheap is,
Affordable. I don't know what the word is. Right. I don't mean it's cheap. I don't mean the quality. Low price. Right.
So I talk about photography because I feel
You're
like
affordable.
people who paint are I put
that's something I heard.
30
Yes.
hours into it,
Yes.
and they think a photographer just snaps and shoots.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah. No.
that's not the
Well,
case with a photographer. So it's
I think you're right that the general public might think that. I can tell you as an art director and creative director, I know differently. I know that I'm not a photographer and I don't know how you guys do it and I look for different things. So I know the value of what photographers can do. You know what I mean? And that I can't do it. Even though I have a really good eye, you give me a really good camera, I still am never going to say I'm a photographer. I'm not.
Yeah.
right.
I'm one of the, but people don't necessarily know that. There's a lot that goes into it and I know it.
Yeah.
But it's
And
I
even
never
if
know
you
how
that
to
doesn't devalue it. Even if you snap.
No, but I'm I never know how to price it.
You know what I mean?
my piece that went
That's
to
Part
the
of
last
the
day,
product, though.
I literally
So you
don't
replicate it as an
I chase clouds all day.
I
And so I'm
understand.
even just going and getting a shot, took me
So
really the
when you go
entire
to
day.
the methods, there's one that says, there's the time you put into it, like she said, there's one of the factors. There's your materials, how expensive is your camera, how expensive is the print, right? So there's some hard things that you can track, like that's which is how long you put it in. And then there's the method. Do you market value, do whatever. I can't really speak. Photography's gone through a really wild thing over the past 15 years. It's really become commodified, like, because it's all over stock photography. Or, you know, like, it used to be such a more coveted thing. And if you're not a specialist now, if you don't have like a really special look or thing, like, what's his name in the swamp?
Clyde.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know Clyde Butcher piece, you know Anselm piece, you know these people, you know, if you don't have like a thing that you're doing, it's really tough. It's
So
just
as
a
far as
tough
pricing
market.
about stuff though, for like the pricing of photography is about
I have no
the
idea,
quality,
I
the
never know
presentation,
how
right?
to like price
Because
these.
you can value it however you want,
The
but
methods would be
it's kind of like a
square
specific
I would say
craftsmanship thing.
also really make it clear that you have limited amounts, like there's maybe only 10 of these, there's only one of these. If you just frame a photo and someone knows that you might frame it some in another show and another show and another show, so like you have to make it be like, this is the only time this will sell.
No, I will only frame one, but I'll have prints of.
But do you make
I'll
only
make
one
prints.
size one time? Like, this is the original size.
Yes,
one of one
yeah, I will
size.
only make
Yeah, like put one of one on it, and like
And then-
that gives it a different value.
Yeah,
Like,
and then-
Unless you go
and
with
then I
the
will
world
do
one next
print.
week, it's not.
Well, that's
So I feel like that's almost kind of like mine, and I'm not a liar, so what's the difference?
Your flowers that you're naming for people, that is like your thing. So like, that is like huge, like you're like, I'm taking a picture and I'm calling this, and I'm calling it that. And so it's a flower, and the way you're doing that, and you're just finding your thing. And also too is getting to the methods of the actual cost pricing, the market pricing, and then the square inch pricing. I think you're going to find with photography, I know we're not there yet, but I think you're going to find using the methods, but your thing is naming, because by golly, let me tell you, there's a Jessica flower out there, and I'm really excited about that. And I would actually.
Yeah, there's a
launch
green
that
short
flower.
chapet, and it's 2 cacti.
That is right. So the big news is that's where you're finding your niche in what you do and finding it. And I like how they said also too about that's the original, that's it. There's one of one. There's not having any more.
you're not gonna go
My
find
mom's favorite piece in
Right.
her house is Diane's Magical Garden. And it's named after Diane.
Oh my. You haven't put mine out yet, but I'm gonna actually collage it. I've got the stuff to make the shoes all ready.
Wait.
I've got the shoes ready
Right,
for
it's
you.
the floor.
Ooh, there you go. Just say what
Oh,
no
no.
ice, but
Oh, no.
Regular conversation.
Oh, no.
The-
That's different.
photographer in me, okay, so yeah, I just got 4 degrees, did all that stuff, and I still love all my stuff.
Yeah, you love all your.
I love all it, and that's because I do not value myself. And so now, guess what? Prices are jacked up. I purposely stopped doing straight photography, where you make something and you frame it and all that. That's why I switched to
Resin.
Polaroid thing, yeah. Back when it was the Type 59 film, and I could do all the, I could blow it up really big, and I actually go into the dark room, and that's why when I was on the circuit and doing all the shows, all my photographer friends hated. They're like, oh yay, because I may not sell anything on Saturday, but then I'll win a huge prize of an award on Saturday night, and then I'll sell out on Sunday. Because your whole process is the art. Process is the art.
It's a whole other.
Yeah. Huh?
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
I still have all my
Yeah.
It's about what you talk about.
Well, and that's the, and
So
still
you don't
have all my
before someone else is willing to.
And I
buy it.
was just now learning after, I got my degree in like 93, and I'm just now getting to the point where I can stand by my ears, and everything I've ever done is a one. So, it's, it's fun. Not by itself, it's good, it's just not sulfur, but it's delicious. Yeah,
Chocolate?
it's delicious, yes.
Gee.
Yeah. She wants to be asking. Oh, I'm sorry that there's no ice.
That's around, I take it first. So
that's all not.
And I can't do that.
I was here for that.
There's water if you
I
want.
was here for the body department. I was here for the body department. That's when you got your.
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's so good. It's fucking good. You're so good. Your craftsmanship, your chairs, to be like, is humble, but.
I'm with him. And
It's just because it's not
great, but it's not.
doesn't mean it's
It's
not.
hard for me to play the same games. I don't think I understand.
And I think
It's actually dangerous to be This should not be on the record. Cut that on the record.
No, I don't think anybody heard anything.
Or just watching straight chops down shit.
So, we want to let's talk about the three methods, and then we can just keep rambling.
I can't wait to get to this
And then I have and then I want to recap real quick the groups if anybody wants to join them, and the blind box art still thing that I want to do in the future.
Oh, that's
That I've talked to some people about, but I'd like this to be a product of our salon, and we want to keep them together.
All right, three methods, actual cost pricing, market pricing, and
square inch pricing.
and square inch pricing.
Okay. Method one.
Method one, actual cost pricing. I'll start with actual cost pricing, only to show you the most extreme pricing method. In its simplest form, it's in 3 steps. Step number 1, determine your overhead costs. These are all your costs that you incur in your art business. The materials, office supplies, the technology, your rent, your utilities, your insurance.
Your phone bill, everything.
Everything.
It all goes into it.
Yeah. Step number 2, figure out the overhead cost per artwork. Calculate it on an annual basis. Way too much math for me, I'm sorry.
To what? It's very left brain, right? But I think that it's because it's too hard to say what was your overhead this week.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fine.
yeah.
So overhead cost per year divided by the number of works you made that year equals the overhead cost per week.
Right.
Per work, sorry. Step number 3, calculate the cost. So from here, it's overhead cost per work. Your labor, your hourly rate, 10% profit margin, commission paid plus framing equals sales price.
So your 10% profit is your profit, meaning your time is not profitable per se. That's trading hours for dollars, right? She wants you to throw 10% on above that. And I really like it. It's not a lot. 10% is not huge, but you spend 3 hours doing something. It does, if you're $30 an hour person, $100, whatever it is, then add 10% plus the paint, plus the canvas, plus your electricity that week, blah, 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 right? So you're meeting all of your costs, because your time is your time, you're working. But that little 10% is just you're like, there's my intrinsic creative value, like the reason why it's me. And then the gallery per commission goes on top of that.
It's just business.
But so right,
You make 10% on anything, you're selling,
that's just your little like profit. I mean, right? And then the gallery percent. And guys, and I
The
don't
gallery conversation is completely separate conversation. Let's just talk about pricing your artwork right now because.
sure, but she's saying the percent should be built into all your prices. And then I want to say, don't forget, I want to say this
True, yeah.
during the salon, is don't forget sales tax.
Oh, yes.
Like at some point, it doesn't happen to a lot of artists all the time, but at the Art Institute for Lauderdale where I went, it was for advertising. However, there were a lot of fine art classes I took. Anyway, teachers were all just professional artists out there, so I remember this one, she's like, yep, I got audited, it was terrible, and I'm like, you have to charge sales tax and remit it.
Yeah,
Not just charge it, but charge it and give it. Just want to say that, I don't know if that's in any of this, but.
That's what the big thing in Square is. You swipe the card, taxes come right out.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
When you swipe the card, it takes the tax. That's beautiful. Like, it's not in your price.
Yeah.
You swipe the
It
credit
depends.
card.
I put on my prices, I don't want you ever to pay tax. to pay it, and then they also owe me $13.75 on top of whatever they
But
sold.
they give you a
But
credit.
you gotta factor that in.
Oh, I get it, but I'm just saying, that's something
But then
that,
you should tell them.
it's like a
Taxes included, let them know.
good business
But they
practice.
give you a credit card.
I just want to look out,
It's not.
it's more of a safety. Method 2, so let's consider the market. Market pricing. This is the most important method because you learn where your art fits in the sales market. You must know this. To begin your market pricing strategy, conduct research to find comparables to your work. You're looking for artists who do similar work, use similar material, and are at a similar spot in their careers. Be sensitive to how your work is different from someone else's and why you should price yours differently. You can find a lot of prices online, but galleries do not generally post their prices. You will have to visit galleries to research those prices. Your focus is where in this market does my work fit? Does my work and I fit? Do your research. Notice the red dots and sold labels. Prices do not mean much unless the work is actually selling. It's like eBay. Attention to
That's a
Facebook
big
because
one.
artists often brag about selling their work. So on social media, you can actually pay note of that. Like what is actually selling? What do they get? That's a good note. While market research is the best place to begin, it still isn't easy. You will continue to question your prices. This is just part of being an artist with your own business. You need to be okay with this, and there you go, Justin. You need to be okay with this uncertainty. I hereby give you permission to be okay with not being okay with your prices.
Yay!
I don't want to read.
Oh, it was so perfect though, it went all the way to 3. Look how they all
That is actually true. They made it all the way back to the beginning.
square inch? Yes. Yeah.
This is
Method number 3, price by square inch.
Square inch pricing is popular way for two-dimensional artists to figure out their prices and only works in conjunction with the other 2 methods mentioned. It can save you a lot of headaches, especially if you try to do the first one. Begin by calculating the surface area of each piece. For example, a 16 by 20 inch work is 320 square inches. If you charge $2 a square inch, you know that that piece is going to be $640. Let that sink in.
Seems kind of cheap.
Because I just put, never mind.
Well, yours per square inch, what was that, all those,
Yeah.
what were you talking about?
No, I was talking about the 2 pieces I just
What
put
are
in
you
there.
charging?
That's what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying.
Those, so I charge 200 because the pieces are like 4 by 6.
So
But
wildly
the
underpriced.
framing is 16 by 20.
That may or may not get to it, but you might be able to have the framing
Wow, yeah,
in your pricing.
How can you change prices? So you
Yeah.
need to talk about it.
Wow.
Okay, great.
Even though that dollar amount ultimately is easy to come by, it has to be based on something. You can't just pull the square inch number out of the blue, as many self-proclaimed artist gurus have suggested. It comes from your market research, your pricing formula, and your overhead. I guess just be smart about it.
That's what she says?
No, I
Oh.
we do talk like, square inch pricing is a good starting point, and it can only be a guideline adapted to a sliding scale. For example, if you make a variety of sizes, your small work may be $2 per inch, while large work could go down to $1.50 or even $1 per square inch.
In which case it's sort of arbitrary.
Yeah. A word of caution. Do not tell people that your work is $1x a square inch. Don't tell people that, oh, use the square
It
inch.
must sound like it devalues that inch or something.
Yeah, use the number as a calculation behind the scenes because per square inch sounds like you're selling flooring all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like fine art pricing. So keep the magic formula to yourself.
That's not a bad idea, though, to keep in mind of what people pay to paint a house. So if you want to sell your painting for $200, I can't get a room painted for $200. Why? So you've got to consider that kind of shit too. Some other guy can use his right hand and just paint a wall,
Yeah,
right?
it's ridiculous.
And that can be as valuable or more valuable, sadly, than painting a painting. with your left hand, that took
Actual,
you
that's-
some crazy amount of things. So those kind of things are good to think about, especially if you're doing mural stuff like Justin and them,
That's-
because you're using commercial grade
Per
stuff.
square inch on a mural.
Commercial grade work.
By square foot. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was a joke, but, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jackie Shindahetty. She's Florida landscape artist for the most part. She's got a lot of like the palm trees and swamps and plein air and, you know, pink skies. They're quite lovely, and she does really well. It has been her only job for a long time. I know she's like a retired person at this point and whatever, so it's not her main thing, but she did very well, like with it being her main thing. And she priced per square inch. She was in the group that I had that 10 years ago called Out of Hand Artists, and she's the only one that did that, and she lived by it, and she was very happy with it. And I mean, she just did all the art shows. She had this great, she did all the marketing things she was supposed to do. I don't know, anyway. I'm just using her as an example because most of her art is all that landscape stuff, so it's sort of, I don't want to say it's formulaic because they are different. I mean, I bought one for my mom, and it's just stunning, and so I don't mean to say that they're not unique. But there was some kind of formula of repetition of things with I think her art, and so that kind of makes sense to me to do a square inch thing because it's more like one product.
Right.
She was
Drake's is a square
trained
inch.
by Beanie Backus, who trained the highwaymen. And so that's her backing, and that's how she got to her style.
Right.
And so that's what you see all the time over and over
Right.
and over again.
And you can recognize her
So
work,
it
you know,
makes
and
sense
yeah.
for her to do something formulaic like that because
Right.
she does the same style all
Right.
the time.
So I just wanted to give that as an example, where if you're cutting a lot of work in one piece but not in another, that may just not make sense.
So much.
Justin, your works are not the same thing. I don't know that whether you put the same amount of work into them or not, but I don't always know when I see your work. I do know sometimes, bam, that's Justin. Other times I'm like, oh, what? That's Justin? Like, I don't always
I
know.
have my different style thing. So like
Sure.
as time goes on, you be like, okay, well now I know because I do have like I'm probably
Agreed.
like now I have a piece of photography to know, so you'll see a different.
Oh my God. Right.
You'll be like, wait, that's Justin.
Yeah.
No, I feel like I can.
Jessica, you didn't see his photography? I noticed.
Yeah, I showed it to you.
Is it about the art or is it about the art because it's made by you?
No, I thought we talked
So
about
it should.
it.
So I'm just saying, to square inch it might not make the same sense. It's not like one No, but it sure is easy if that works for you, you know?
When I do read murals, I do like that I do the square foot thing. Like, it feels good to have a formula, and I say, I just do that with my paintings, but then I don't feel the same like
Yeah.
passion because sometimes I feel like this painting's successful,
Yeah.
even though it didn't take me this much time or it's not this bigger. Like there was something like I was tapped.
There's more of an intangible.
This piece is way better and it needs the price.
More
tag.
price.
Like I mean,
Yeah.
I won't be able to do that again. I can't force myself to do
We
that.
need to talk about sticking out that we don't have the paper.
Right.
Leslie
Pass that
Hammond.
skull around.
Leslie Hammond is talking now. The skull.
Yeah, pass the skull. Is that heavy?
So if you hold a skull, you have
That's
to
it's over here.
Yeah. Oh, it's too heavy.
That's
Never
what-
mind.
If it was light, that would have been.
What about that tiki thing behind you?
No.
Okay, Leslie's talking anyway.
So I just want to bring something up really quickly about, this consistency of style or the different styles.
Yeah.
One of the things in my world as an art appraiser and a connoisseur and a collector, I have the disease and all that kind of stuff. Something when you're talking about an artist and you have a particular style that you're expecting, like whatever. So Jackie, you expect that to be Jackie's work.
Right.
However, if you take someone like Picasso, and he has all these different styles and
Periods.
different
Yeah.
movements. And so it's the rose period, it's the blue period,
Right.
it's the cubist period,
Right.
it's this, and this. They all garner different values. Just because it's Picasso, that
And not just sketches versus paintings.
I'm not talking
just different periods.
Let's just
Different
talk
styles.
paintings. I'm
Yeah.
not even talking
Okay.
prints or anything.
Okay.
Let's talk paintings.
Yeah.
it's like, okay, one is Picasso, so you know it's gonna be that.
Yes.
Two, why does a cubist piece goes for this amount of money, but yet a blue period piece goes for more money?
More, because there are less of them.
Partly that, but I mean, this is what I'm saying, when you're talking about, and case in point, let's just use something a little less
Because
grandiose.
Picasso's cubist
Little
pieces
grand-
are confused with George Brock's cubist pieces.
No, no, I'm talking Picasso's figural cubist
Yeah.
pieces,
Right.
not like Rock's.
Okay.
No.
Right.
His distinct stuff.
But what I'm saying is that an artist oftentimes will go through an exploratory period where this period is what they did then some
Yeah.
life event happened, and then they did this, and then they did that. And so I guess my point with this is that it's not just to what you were just saying. I'm not just buying a Justin piece because it's by Justin. It's because it's by Justin, and it is a quintessential piece by Justin that everybody knows. And so my advice is, and I heard this very long time ago, is that you buy the most expensive piece that you can afford that represents that artist to the nth degree.
Like
Yeah.
exemplary.
It's an exemplary.
Panache. And
So basically, we
That makes a
are,
lot of sense to me.
Go, no.
Say it.
Go ahead.
Leslie, too.
We're not gonna judge.
You have four.
Throw the skull.
I think also that the buyer has an emotional connection with that piece as well. Like-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you have a connection with it, so
Yes.
you're also placing value on that one particular piece more or less than another piece. You're connecting emotionally
Yes.
and psychologically with that piece.
Funny,
as
And
a
I'm
buyer.
so glad you brought that up because it is. Everybody
It stops people
has
from
different
buying
experiences in life and they connect with different things. And I will give you a very specific example. Some of you know Jack Thursby, who was the
Yeah.
professor, art professor in CF for ages and ages.
yeah.
So amazing.
They did a retrospective before he retired.
Right.
And this is my experience. I walked into the gallery on campus, the Weber Gallery. I turned to the right. I saw this painting by Jack. I mean, it was all Jack paintings, of course, but I turned to the right. I saw this painting. I immediately did a 180, walked out of the gallery. I didn't even walk in the gallery. I turned 180. I went into the main lobby area. I used the phone. I said, Jack, put me on a payment plan, because it just powerfully spoke to me. Because it was this young lady, I found out after the fact, the story that went with it. And this is the other thing that's really uber important for anybody that's buying art, is the story behind it. Not just the story, but understanding the process. Because the more you understand and connect with the artist and have that conversation with the artist,
I want to do a whole other thing on this. I want to do another thing on this.
yeah,
For sure.
and this
But
is
it's
what's
so
very
Yes.
important, and why buying directly from artists, not ditching the dealer, because you gotta do that too, but that dealer needs to be knowledgeable to be telling you that.
Right.
Anyway, my point was is that painting by Jack, that was one of his art students that did really great in his art classes, the studio classes, but struggled in his art history classes. The name of the painting is called Held Back by Art History.
Wow.
And on top of it, the young lady in the painting, you know this painting.
I know, yeah,
I know you know this too. Looks very, I mean, when my hair was darker before I bleached it, I look very similar to that young lady. Not because that mattered, but what mattered to me, what mattered to me was what was in the background. Because it was a painting of a sculpture from an ancient monument that I know very well, and it just blew me away. Because Jack is this amazing
So it's
talent,
a real
representation of realism.
Yeah.
And he made this marble sculpture come alive.
So you have an instant relationship with that.
Exactly, and that's why I share that story, because that's what it is. And it's
Yeah.
not necessarily, not to be disrespectful, it's not about you're a good artist or you're not a good artist. It's about the person that is buying it and does
They relate.
speak to you.
They relate.
That's what came from the beginning,
That's
and
what-
at the end, said, what the buyer is willing to.
And that's right.
And that's part of it, right? Is to
Say it.
like allow you to.
When I set up for a show, an art, festival, and I sit there and I'm doing my thing and I'm selling my work, I know for sure that I'm going to sell a piece when the person stops in their tracks, looks, and goes, "Oh my God!" And that I don't have to tell them about my process. I lay it all out so they understand, but I know that that is sold because there is something in them that they connected, and those are my solid sales, the fastest ones. Now, because I put out and I educate what my process is, then the next year, people that learn, maybe they couldn't afford, they think about it all year long. I can't wait to get back to that lady and see what she has this year. And again, I really like this, I really like that, but this one speaks to me.
Yeah.
And that's what
But you're also educating them and help them appreciate your work so more.
And that's the thing, you have to.
Expect it to work, or is it that?
No,
you never know what people
You have
like?
no idea.
I'm always shocked by what people want. It's always stuff I don't want to show,
you have to do
stuff I
you.
think is weird.
So I have a
That's the stuff people want.
No matter what, you have to do you because you never
I'm saying from a sales.
You're copying someone else, and then.
Listen,
Yeah,
let me
right.
finish my statement. What I'm saying is from a pricing standpoint, just because I'm not super crazy about it, doesn't mean you're not.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna put something that's not my taste.
Listen.
Yeah.
Like, there's pieces in here that are I have an affinity to. Then there's other ones that are, but that doesn't matter to you.
You don't know what everybody
And I
wants. Yeah.
remember, and I used to work with my cousin a lot, he would always like deflate himself before even realizing it by talking to people and being like, well, I'm not crazy about this one, so I'll give it. And then it immediately destroys that magic.
That's why having a formula,
Before it even happens.
that's why having a formula, whether it's a square inch or your overhead or whatever it is a good basis, because if you just go by your taste, and I literally heard artists say, well, I just like this one better, so I'm double pricing it because I think it's like a lot more. I have a quick story.
You can go higher, just don't go.
I'm 50 now. When I was 40, I did a 40 for 40. I did 40 paintings for $40 each, just kind of for fun. It wasn't a losing. It was kind of a break even. But anyway, they were all. I all put, huh?
Is that like a 40 under 40 thing?
No.
It's not,
Yeah.
we were trying to cross.
40 paintings, $40 each. I was on my 40th birthday. Each one had, they were sort of like a little collage-y type of thing with words and photo and painting and stuff. And I thought, why would anyone want to buy fucking, excuse me, viewer, pictures of me? Like, it's me. Like, so what? This is not my mom or my grandma. This isn't like a scrapbook. Like, but anyways, I did it, right? And I put them on the wall. Somebody, of all the people, lots of people liked it, and lots of people bought them, and blah, blah, blah. But this one woman in particular, I'm just going to say, it was a wedding picture of mine. I've been married before 3 times. Anyway, it was a wedding picture of me in a wedding dress, my first one, so it's very dramatic. They're like, oh, me, she has so And this woman sheds a tear. She's against the wall, and it's all very and puffy shoulder because it's 1994. Anyway, this woman sheds a little tear and says that's me in my wedding dress. You know what I mean? So I'm like sitting there going, why does anyone want my wedding picture? I feel stupid, and yet I'm kind of doing this show. But anyway, they related in their way, and it reminded her of her, and she shed a tear, and she bought the thing, whatever. Anyway, so Jessica.
So speaking to what people want and when they walk onto something and what they see and how you value yourself. Emerging artist at FAFO, my start to art, thank you, Lisa Midget. I put my pieces up and I had my 3 horses. I'm like, I love you, my horses. I had 3 bird pieces in the back corner.
I love your birds.
In the back corner, and I'm like, whatever.
Everyone wanted
I could have sold that 9 times. 9 But to me, it wasn't the value. I didn't see any of the value in it. And people walked in and they were like, yes. The next day, I put them out right there where people could see and they could shop and they could look at them. But to me, it wasn't that. And so many times when I create art, what I think is amazing, nobody else does. In fact, my least favorite piece that I've ever done, Lisa Midget loved. That was my least
So this is,
favorite I've ever done.
and this is definitely a topic for a whole other salon there, because I'm just gonna, give a 2-minute thing with, I just watched the Basquiat movie, not the big one with David Bowie that we've all seen, but another one with some footage that had been lost that someone interviewed him. Moral of the story, I call Ralph, you're my one friend, I could just dish this out to, but I just had this inspirational moment, because Basquiat is, we all love him, but he's another one of those artists that you could say, scribbles, kid stuff, you know, I mean, you can be judgy on that, right? Like it's,
Yeah, 110 million.
See, that's
what was in there? And that's what I want to say. So like, he had messages despite the looseness and the childishness. And it was just so inspiring because we tend to go like, what would the public want me to create? Should I make an orange and blue gator colored thing or whatever will sell? You know what I mean? Ignorant, like, but just make what your heart wants to make, for God's sake, and put it out there. That's the only way to be an artist, a true artist. Yeah. Thank you, Basquiat, for that inspiration. But that's another salon. Anyways, pricing of art.
But I think your point is good, Jesse. You have to have a starting point. And then as you learn, as you mature as an individual and as an artist, and you have the experience of selling things, you're going to be able to massage stuff. And I have I've had a number of artists call me as an appraiser saying, how should I value my art? I'm like, I don't know, I'm not an artist, but these are some things you should think about. And, you know,
these are kind of in line.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you really feel like you would add that was missing?
The only other thing that we're going to make a note about, I was saying by the best example, but the other thing that we were talking about multiples and stuff, I think it's really important that if you're doing multiples of anything, and I'm not talking G-clays, I'm talking like lithographs and etchings and this kind of stuff.
Could we add photography in that? Because
yes, absolutely.
I want to talk about photography.
Absolutely. My point is that, if you want to do something fun to market yourself and sell it an open edition for $5, I think that's great. Because if that is in somebody's house and they said, oh, that's really cool, who is that? Then you are spreading the word about your art, and I think that's really important. However, if you decide you're going to make something in a limited edition, price it relative to the size of the edition. And I will use the example of Thomas Kincaid.
Oh, sorry.
No, I know. I have to use that because, I'll have somebody call me and say, oh, I got a Thomas Kincaid. Okay, great. And then I said, they said, well, it's original. I said, is it a multiple? And does it have a little fraction number on it? And, because that's the best way for me to explain it. It's a fraction number on the corner, on the left or right corner. Everybody knows what a fraction is. Anyways, so I'm like, what's the fraction number? And they said, oh, it's, 250 of 1,500. And I'm like,
yeah.
No.
Hey, does the first number really matter?
It does not.
It
does not.
Are you number 1 of 100 or are you number 100 of 100? It matters to me buying it though. I feel like I want to feel
as all things.
but it doesn't really matter.
It depends on the artist, because if you're talking about, say for example, different states of works, so like Whistler, if you have a print that's a first state, there may be 100 of those, but he's reworked the plate. And then, so the second state is kind of like a similar concept. But the more he works the plate, the less
quality.
So then which version you're getting?
The actual like print, like already prints and things like that.
Yes,
The first
exactly.
one is the box.
Has very strong
Like the first one.
colors, yes, exactly. So there's so many clear.
But not like.
No, she plays
That's an old school version. Okay, so we covered a bunch of topics. Does anyone have any specific questions after that? I feel like we maybe have still a hole for photography. We really have sculptors in the room. We may have them as our one or two viewers or not, but for photography versus painting, and Hudson,
Yeah, maybe.
you're here, which is really cool. Are you here for pricing, like, or are you just here to just, tell me a little.
I'm here, I'm
Anyway,
interested in the subject for a number of reasons. Like Ralph and you ladies, I do video production, which includes often photography and of course film, audio work. I've been doing a lot of
He's also a
artwork.
filmmaker, screenwriter, writer, so yeah, all the things. All the things, but not necessarily the painting thing.
But as the one thing I'm not is a good judge of value for what I should ask for my work or for my time, better yet. So for me, it's a very interesting subject. I've gotten jobs that I felt like, were a blessing, and I've also kicked myself in the ass a number of times by just, giving away my time. So it's a very interesting subject. Recently, I've been doing a lot of personal artwork, two-dimensional artwork,
Illustrations for your story.
Yeah, illustrations and things like that. So I don't know. I'm fascinated by it, and the people I know in the community I've gotten to meet and all that. I'm like, this is like can't miss this discussion. So.
Cool. I just want to see if there's anything that we haven't covered that wants to be asked, or have we touched
I
on
think-
photography enough too?
I think photography is again, it's a world of its own as far as the discussion
It is
goes.
a world of its own. But is a Clyde Butcher looked at as a world of its own, or as another piece of fine art? There's a Ralph D'Amelio, is a Leslie and Ralph. Okay, Ralph is a commercial photographer, but also a fine artist photographer, and he's only had a couple shows. Leslie is fine art photographer who also does a bit of commercial stuff. It's sort of right. So they're really two different things. If you're doing commercial photography, like for a magazine, like blah 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 blah.
I think that
Versus as fine art, two completely different things. So I think this is a
I
fine
think
art.
persona might even be more important to the photographer now.
Persona.
Yeah, it might be even more important to say yourself
The artist's persona or the look of
Everyone
their
has,
art?
or not everyone has the medium, not everyone has the great equipment, but nowadays everyone has the access.
Oh, exactly.
not everyone
That's what I'm saying.
Not everyone has a paintbrush, but
Has
everyone,
changed
has
so
tools.
much.
So I can say this is kind of an interesting time because like I said, I have photography, right? So for me, pricing my photography is way lower than I consider it a little lower, and it's this whole different thing because it's quickly made. Not to say that it doesn't come to time to find a shot
we talked
because
about
it's
this earlier
it was a
today.
time in my life, it was this crazy moment, and it was it never would have happened if the circumstances didn't occur. But it's still I valued, that piece is $400. The same thing when I paint something similar size could be, twice that, or more. But something that I value less because it was a piece of photograph, I don't know.
It's something that they'll never be together. They'll never
Still,
be
it's a
completely
one-on-one.
one-to-one. It's, you can respect it, you can appreciate it, but it will never be a handcrafted painting. Just like a handcrafted painting will never be a picture. Ansel Adams, I can't do what Ansel Adams did, no matter what I do. There's things that happen with photography. I took the history of photography at UCF during my art history studies, and photography changed everything because they start showing things that weren't able to be shown before. So you can tell me a story, but if you can't show me the picture of what happened, we live in that world now. We devalue photography, but photography is so incredibly valuable because it shows what you could not previously have shown. And that, photography will make you cry your eyes out.
Yeah.
Because they show you. Look what they show you. The ugliness of the things
Yeah.
that do not
It's still
come back, the things that can never
that's
be
what I-
again, like a perfect
And it's
example.
not made
I
up.
have a book in there by, I think the guy's name is Curtis, and he photographed all of the Native American Indian tribes throughout all the Americas about the last 50 years of the reformation of this country. And he did this with a certain type of artistic integrity, and those people are gone now.
I think he made
Those cultures
a
are
really,
gone, so
really
that
good
photography doesn't
But
necessarily.
there's still a certain type of people that respect them, such as like people like myself, who
there's a
still
difference.
like, you know, respect
Are they
like
fleeting moments, or are
your
they
John,
pictures
you know,
that
like John Muir and
are
people
just
like
like
that,
this?
like
There's levels of it.
Well, I think-
Just like those paintings, there's guys that throw a projector and they can do a whatever real fast, and it's cool, and that's all fun.
Right.
And
So for
then
pricing
the
photography,
It's about like, looking into what your ambitions are.
for
What do you
pricing
want? How do you
photography,
want?
would the formulas not still apply? Like, I'm gonna go back to Clyde Berger once again because his prints are huge. Because he goes out to the swamp, it takes a long time, and he's got this housing that's on this tripod, right, and it's like this old fashioned thing.
Yeah.
So there's a whole other element to it, which goes to, in there, it goes to your,
Cost stuff too.
the
And
overhead, the
it's
cost
like-
of the, the medium,
His
stuff like that.
brand
It's giant, okay, by the way, not only are they that big, but what does it take to make them that big and that clear? They're not cheap, like, I don't know what that production
Yes,
is.
that's-
and his brand
That's
is
not-
Are they 8 by 10, I don't know what he's shooting, but anyway. So there's a reason for that to be so expensive, that isn't just do I like it or not, right? It's his,
But I use
What's
the
it?
same camera that he does.
Yeah.
I use the same, I have the same stuff.
Yeah.
Is it transparency?
Huh?
Transparency?
I can shoot transparent.
I mean, is that what you're talking about? I'm sorry, I didn't
How
understand.
expensive is the film for that now? Because remember,
It's
probably
outrageous.
$5 just an egg, like
Right,
one
it
shot's
just
like
depends.
$5 a piece, I think. How-
Yeah, it just depends on what you're gonna do with it later.
Yeah.
Dictates what you're gonna spend and, but my thing is like, I always look at that and go, well, I can't do what he does. I have the same stuff, but another thing is
I
he
mean,
does,
can you, or can't you? What do you mean?
I can do it in my own way. I mean, he has, if you look at his setup, he actually processes those huge ass prints in his
Oh.
room.
But no, like, he has a whole team of
He has
people.
a team.
It's his brand is and his lineage that
So,
works
right.
in his gallery.
So there's all that. So what are examples? So I guess I'm trying to get a basis for you guys. So that's one extreme, that's making one extreme.
For a one-person team, where you're
Yeah.
doing your own photography stuff. that's what
But
it
there's
looks like.
no, it doesn't matter.
That.
No matter what I do, no matter how much time I put into it, on special equipment, my stuff is going to be undervalued over a painting.
Yeah.
You know what's happening now? There's things where anything is undervalued under digital work now. And being a student here, that we're having all the time, where we have these competitions.
Hold on, what's
And
undervalued in digital art? Painting?
digital art is now become this thing that, because they can just make, you can make things on your iPad and print them, and to make them look like a canvas, then they hang that right next to some
Yeah.
600-hour painting. And these things are winning awards, these things are placing, and it's a whole.
Again, that comes down to the
It's a similar
consumer
discrepancy
though.
with-
Yeah, it's all about the consumer. But, so here's one thing I think that you have to take into consideration too when you're pricing these things out, is the consumer wants to know not only do they want to have an emotional connection with the piece of art, but they want to be able to identify and connect with the artist. So one thing to do that, I think, is something that you guys could all do here is you have somebody, you sit down and interview, right? Like, get the questions. Who are you? Where did you come from? How did you grow up? Why did you get into art? Like, really let the community know who you are as a person and what drives you and what is your inspiration. Because I think those things help them identify and connect with you and your art as well. And that's going to help sell your pieces, not because they think it's cute or pretty or they like the frame, but because they're identifying with you as a person.
So not
A
just
human element.
like
They're taking
significance.
a human element
Where-
and having an emotional connection to the art. Like, that is how you price your art, because the consumer is identifying and connecting.
Yes.
What you think it's worth, what hours you put into it, well, the consumer, unless they're buying it for that very artistic, specific reason, like, oh, they used this camera and they did this, whatever. But a consumer that can relate to you as a human being and what you're doing is totally different.
And I'm saying collectively as in Max, we started doing these things right before the pandemic hit. And we got halfway through our series of artist things where they were presenting stuff and this, and it was like, pow, you know. But yes,
That's Max's mission.
That is like so important, like Rob and
Yeah.
I were just over here silently talking, like, you know how Clyde got his start, like, his son, like, died.
Like, you have to let the community know who you are.
Like, that passion.
That's what Max's mission is, so you could theoretically walk in and see artists in their studios painting and have artist talks and artist things. That's definitely a Max mission.
But it would be really cool to have something too, like even on the website or something they can look at. We're like,
Yes.
hey, let's hear Newman's story. Let's hear Teddy's story. You know, like
You're right,
who is
you're
this
right.
person?
Why did they choose this medium?
You're very much
over
right.
another
You're
medium?
right.
Like, where did you grow? Are you from
Yeah, that's
Ocala?
true.
Like, where
That's
did you
true.
come from?
One of my professors is this lady, Dr. Zaha. She's like, she studies art history, but she studies art history in context. So all her books are about the context in which this stuff took place. Because her whole thing, she'll stop class and she has this whole deal that she repeats and instills in us is that you cannot separate the art from the artist and the time in which it was made, the place in which it was made, and the conditions. So some things can be valuable, right? Like maybe I could have a piece that Justin may have made, and it may be made on paper and with pastels, but maybe he made it on an island off Bimini that he didn't have access to that shit at that time.
Right.
And this is what he made, and this is unique thing. So these things are all very circumstantial.
Yes,
But the biggest part is context. Can I give you context to make it make sense?
Like, if you have the art behind you and you have somebody talking to, like,
can be grown from
what were you going?
It has
What
to
was
start-
happening in your life before you were doing this? I've never got art that I did not connect with or I didn't know the story to. Never.
I mean, that's how I said
The biggest thing is that they
Yeah, now
don't
those
care
doors are
about
like
the art.
doors to do dinners.
They care about you,
What?
the source, the
Yes.
story, they want to connect with the art.
Yeah.
They're buying the art.
So when people come over, they're like, this piece is by so-and-so, and they're telling them about the artist and why this painting was done, and now it's part of their life. You've connected with this artist.
So,
Take pictures